All right, welcome everybody to For Wild Places' third trail chat. We're doing these monthly chats now, very exciting, getting some momentum on. My name's Will, I'm based in Port Kembla, which is Dharawal land, south coast of New South Wales. And first thing I want to do is pay respects to elders past and present and acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. So as mentioned, this is our third trail chat today, organised by For Wild Places. For Wild Places is a group of activist runners that aim to protect and celebrate the wild places that we love to run in. And yeah, we're organising these trail chats just to talk to awesome people, chat about experiences, and hopefully get the word out about what For Wild Places is doing. Today's special guest, we are super stoked. It's a local guest for me because I'm also someone who hails from Port Kembla. But Josh Wiffen, a gun ultra runner from down this way, has just completed the epic Western States endurance run. And it kind of looks like he's sitting in a loo, and he kind of is. He's currently in Portland. So it's pretty amazing that Josh has made the time for us today. But a super big welcome to Josh. How you going, mate?
Thanks, guys. Great to be here. Thanks heaps for inviting me on. It's amazing. Like I say, I hope we don't get interrupted with my poor Wi-Fi and sitting in the train toilet while we're transitioning. At the moment, I'm completely stuck at the station because the engine broke down and we've had to change engines and stuff. So theoretically, if it stays like that for the next hour, then our chat should be fine. I've just got to worry if my phone dies.
Yeah. Cool. Now, folks, we usually keep these things within an hour. I just had a couple of general questions for Josh, a lot based on the Western States run, but then we open up to a bit of Q&A if anyone else wants to jump in and ask a question. But the first thing, Josh, we're just going to ask, tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, what keeps you busy, not necessarily just running, but just yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, running's definitely a big part of my life, and in particular trail running. So I haven't been doing it for an awful long time, probably 8-9 years maybe. And prior to that was doing a little bit of running on the roads, and then once I found the trails and that was a thing and ultra running was a thing, then from there it's ridiculous to even think about running on roads. Unfortunately, this past year has been quite challenging in terms of that, with the mountain falling apart because of all the trails being way too wet and everything. But yeah, we do what we can. I'm also a community development worker, working specifically at the moment. I'm working, well, not right at the moment, I'm in the States, but normally I'm in Wollongong working with young people and different communities doing community-based programs and projects. I'm single dad with one son who's 12 years old, and what else? Oh, also an artist, and sort of do a lot of mural work and paintings and installations. Yeah, that's, I guess, the elevator pitch.
Awesome. Yeah, and actually on that note, Hill, we should, Josh, if it's cool with you, when we share this vid, we'll share some links to your work, because it's
yeah, absolutely.
Folks should check it out. Yeah, nice one. And also, Josh is part of the Seacliff Coasters down here. Shout out to the Coasters. A bunch of.
Oh, most definitely. How could I forget that? Yeah, Seacliff Coasters, Wollongong Distance Running Club as well. But yeah, like and just the great running community of Wollongong and the Illawarra area. It's actually a really great place. And if you haven't been to the Illawarra, don't come at the moment. But once the rain all dries up and everything, and the trails are open, do come down, do shoot us a line. If you need a place to stay, come and crash with me and I'll show you some trails. Woo.
Wow, beautiful. Oh man, we might have to just record that and put that at the end of this chat.
Yeah, I probably should have left it till then. I'll do it again.
Nice. Josh, you kind of touched on it a bit then, but the next question was why. So why and when did you start running? And also, how does someone who's a runner go from running to deciding they want to enter a 100-mile race?
It's just one step after the other, just like running. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So I guess my run, like I haven't overly been. Can you hear that?
Oh, you about to go?
Maybe. I just thought it might. So this is, I guess, this is part of the challenges of being on the journey at the same time as trying to do interesting things like this. So yeah, I haven't been sort of super physically active and running individual my whole life. That's kind of not what my journey was. I was heavily into breakdancing there for a while, and that was a big part of my life, and that was, you know, amazing, and I love it. But then, you know, just the way life goes, you grow older and people move away and everything, so that sort of transitioned away from that. And then I guess the big sort of stuff happened about 10 years ago or so. Some big life changes happened, and from there, a friend of mine got me into some outdoor fitness stuff, which then led into doing some specific run programming. So when funnily enough, when I first started doing that, I was doing the outdoor fitness classes and lifting heaps of weights and doing a lot of boxing and everything. And then the run classes were a thing, and I kind of, like, I went and did the interval classes, which were great, but just sort of basic run classes I kind of thought were dumb because it's like, okay, so you go along and they just tell you to run a certain distance and that's it. I was like, what are you paying that for that? That's crazy. It seems really dumb to me. But I soon found I had a bit of a knack for running and sort of grew to really be into it, and did sort of some run programming towards a half marathon. And I did a couple of those, and then did some programming towards doing a full marathon. And I did that. And actually, when I did that on my own because I sort of couldn't afford to actually go to the run that everyone else was doing. So I just ran around Lake Illawarra. Hot tip, if you do want to do a marathon and you can't be bothered paying the prices, Lake Illawarra is almost exactly a 42.2 kilometre run. So, and that's one of the things I've got in the back of my mind. I always want to make it like a legit thing. I think it'll be an amazing event to have the Lake Illawarra Marathon. But anyway, but then soon I found out that there was like people would do this stuff on trails and you know, be in nature and do amazing things, like, you know, amazing scenery, and more to the point, they're doing crazy stuff, like doing, at the time, I guess I was only aware of the 100-kilometre events, and I thought, yeah, that's wild. Like, doing 100 kilometers, is that even possible? Like, that's what, well, I guess it is. Maybe, you know, people do it. So I sort of looked into that and was really intrigued by those really long distances. And again, at the time, I didn't have a lot of knowledge around it. A lot of my stuff has been really self-educated and self-directed. Not really having coaching or anything after those sort of initial things. So I moved away from that outdoor fitness and that road running very quickly, and just sort of worked it out. And at the time I was like, yeah, let's do 100 kilometers. That sounds amazing. But I thought, the training time, I didn't feel I had enough for that. So I stepped up and did sort of 50 kilometers. And did that for a couple of years, and then I went, I'll give it a crack, and then sort of discovered that doing 100 kilometers really doesn't take that much extra, if at all. You just got to maybe put in a little bit more kilometers, and then same with 100 miles. Like it's just you just sort of shift your training focus a little bit. And it all depends on your goals. You know, like if you want to do something really fast and try and win, well, that's a different proposal. But if you just want to see what you can do and push the limits of what you can personally do, I don't think it needs to be all that hard. So yeah, I just made it happen, which is really cool. And I think one of the real moments of like the aha moment was when I did finish my first 100 kilometers, and I did that and did it pretty well. And I was just like, I honestly believe that anyone who is physically capable can do it if they really want to do it. It's just about putting that plan in place and not being silly about it. So yeah, certainly, you know, if you're sitting on the couch doing not much and you go, oh, I'm going to run 100 kilometers in a month, then that's asking for trouble. But certainly building up to it, not so much. Yeah, was there more to the question? Did I go off on a tangent? I'm sure I always do. It was running specific, wasn't it? What else did we ask?
That was awesome. That was that was the progression that I was hoping to hear about. So you gained entry to Western States in 2019. Did you get in by lottery?
Yeah. So more intercom. Yeah. So the way it works with Western States, and actually a lot of the 100-mile events in the States, they're based on a lottery system. So you have to qualify first. You have to participate in a qualifying event. For me, and you have to do it in a specific time. So for me, that was the 100 kilometers in the Blue Mountains. So you have to finish it, and it's quite generous. You have to finish that in under 20 hours, I believe it is, to be eligible for Western States. And so I completed that well under that time. And so I sort of thought, well, you know, I'll throw my hat in. And the big thing with that is that it's such a hard event to get into. It's pretty much the oldest 100-mile event in the world, and it's got this real prestige to it. So a lot of people, and because of the trail stewardship of the organisation that puts it together, and working really closely with the trails maintenance, the parks guardians, and all the people, they only allow, normally I think it's 365 people to run the event, so that they can look after the trails. It's quite a popular trail, and they run a few different events in different parts of it. But the Western States specific event, they only allow that 365 people per year to run in Western States. They've changed that a little bit just for a few years due to the COVID stuff. But yeah, normally that's it. So I put in for the lottery. Some people wait up to around 7 years or so. I ran into a guy over here who said he's still waiting. He's got 65 entries in the lottery. So my thing was, I finished my event, put in for the lottery, thinking, okay, in 3 years or so, or more, I'll get onto this 100-mile event of qualifying every year and putting my name in the lottery every year. And so yeah, my name came up, and that was supposed to be for the 2020 event, but obviously we know what happened there. And then it got rolled over to 2021, but as Australians, we weren't allowed to leave the country. So then we rolled over to 2022, and finally we were able to go. So there was about 15 or 16 Australians who were signed up for the 2022 event, and then last minute, I think 2 of those had to drop out. So there was about 14 of us on that start line, which was amazing. Now, I've lost Will.
Yes. So
Will's.
Will's.
You guys haven't lost me. That was my main thing.
Yes,
I was like,
no. Will, he just messaged me and he said he had to duck off urgently, and because he has a very pregnant partner, I'm like, you totally do that. So he's asked me to kind of step in for now, and thankfully I've got my mic working. But what was it? Was there a sense of like Australian camaraderie on the start line? Like, I feel like, just getting to Western States,
absolutely
getting a lottery, plus COVID, and
It's been a massive journey for all of us. Some of them were newly entered for this year, but the majority of us were rolled over from 2020. So, and I sort of made a semi-joke about it in that normally, when you go overseas, you have no interest in hanging out with Australians. It's like, I'm not here to do that. Oh, you hear Australian accent? Right, I'm out of here. I'm going to go over this way. But in the lead up to the event, it was, this massive sense of camaraderie, hanging out with the Australians, talking sort of strategy and plans and all that sort of stuff, helping each other out. I sort of got stuck with my bags at one stage. So one of the other Australians went, oh, well, you just bring it up to my room. So I put that there so I could walk around and everything. It was really quite an amazing experience with that when normally, and it's my first international event as well. Normally, I'll duck, and I don't do a lot of events. I'll sort of do one big one every year, and that'll kind of be it. And it's, you just duck up the road to the Blue Mountains, duck up to Port Macquarie or wherever, and it's no problem. This is international. So
there's so much going on at the moment.
So
good.
What can we do? But yeah, so it was really a bit of a daunting experience, I think, for a number of reasons. Being international, all the extra stresses of that. So I guess to have that Australian contact and such a big group of them as well was just, I think a really welcome and inspiring sort of thing to have. So that worked out really great.
And it must feel weird, I guess, being so far away from home and taking on such a daunting task and not having your like family and your normal kind of crew around you to support you. So having that crew by association to kind of share that experience with. And how does the crewing work for someone like yourself at Western States? Like, do you just do drop bags and stuff, or like how do you kind of take care of yourself throughout the course?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a bit of an outlier with some of that, but certainly, if you're doing an event back home, that home's not far away, and medical stuff's not going to be an issue. So you can just do it, and it's not so much worries. Whereas over here, you're sort of like, oh, okay, travel insurance. What if something seriously goes wrong? What if I fall down the side of a mountain, break a leg? All that sort of stuff is these extra stresses and extra worries. So that's definitely stuff that was on my mind a little bit. But in terms of crewing, I'm very low maintenance. So some people will have a lot of drop bags or have a really good crew to come and help them along, a lot of the Australians did have all that stuff. Certainly my sort of strategy in most events is I guess I'm fortunate enough that I can pretty much throw anything into my guts and be okay. Whereas some other people really I really need these gels, or I really need this. I
feel like that's a superpower. Like that's incredible.
Oh, absolutely. So I just sort of, going into pretty much any event, if I know they've got good, because I have been into events where they have bugger all on their aid stations. So in those, which came as a surprise when I hit that one, actually. I was like, oh, okay, I kind of needed to be more prepared for this one. But certainly Western States has a really good reputation for stock aid stations. So in terms of the nutrition side of things, I wasn't really worried. I just figured, oh, I'll turn up and eat whatever they've got. And there's definitely stories about that. But yeah, eat whatever they've got, and it will work for me. Like I don't have a concern with that, as long as I know they've got sort of fairly well equipped aid stations. If I know that they're only going to have the same 2 items at every aid station, then I might have to be a bit more prepared. And then of course most of the aid stations have drop bags as well, so you can have drop bags. And it was, and again, this is where I'm a bit of an outlier. It was funny. I rolled up to the drop bags sort of station where they were getting them all prepared to be sent off. And there's about 20 aid stations, and most of those have drop bags, and or you can have crew turn up. And so I roll up with one drop bag for the middle station. I just had like a head torch and a toothbrush in it. And then I went, I'll chuck some nutrition in there just in case. And I wrapped it up and dropped it on the thing. And then the people were like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, that'll do. And walked away. So I took my one drop bag, and off I went.
Yeah, wow. And you would have been pretty excited to see that toothbrush like halfway through after all those goons.
Oh, yeah. and I will admit that I could have done with maybe another 1 or 2 drop bags because of some foot issues I ended up having, which I didn't really count on. But certainly when I hit that middle aid station, pulled my head torch out, pulled that toothbrush out, and like, brushed my teeth, and was like, this is awesome. And at that stage, because that's like 55 miles, which is around about 80 k's, I think. So it's roughly the halfway. I think it's a bit more than 80 k's actually. So yeah, I was well and truly ready for it by the time I hit that drop bag.
Oh, I bet. And how, like, because you I guess training pretty heavily like for the 2020 event, and then obviously COVID, how did like injury and stuff play a part in that that interim period?
Oh. And that's another big part of the journey. So when I qualified in a really good time and sort of did a bunch of sums and everything. And with most events, you sort of usually go into it with, 2 or 3 goals, like your A goal of like, if everything goes super well, this is where you're going to go for. Your B goal, if things, don't quite get there, where are you happy to get to? And then your C goal, which is usually, I just got to finish. So going into the preparing for 2020, I was really well trained. I was really fit, really happy with how everything was going, and was really looking at that. So with Western States, you've got, if you're not a superhero and gonna come in that sort of top 10, but your 24-hour goal, so getting sub 24 gets you the silver buckle. Otherwise it's sub 30 hours, like 30 hours is the cutoff, and after 30 hours it doesn't count. So going into 2020, I was looking at that sub 24 hours, and I thought I had a really good shot at it. I was really well trained, really prepared, and figured, if it was going to happen, I could do it. Then obviously we all got locked down, and the event got cancelled that year. So I maintained my training through to 2021, and in the lead up to the 2021 event, once I realised that it wasn't, we weren't going to be able to go, because I think that was really early on, actually. I think sort of January, February, all the Australians got together in a messenger group. So we've been talking for the past 3 years.
Oh wow! So yeah, you all knew each other by the time, like well and truly by the time you got to the start line.
Absolutely. Like we may not have met, but we have.
Yeah.
And like from when it all got drawn, we all got into this message group and having chats. So in sort of that January, February period came, and the Australian government was saying, not going to happen, you can't go overseas. We got together and drafted up a collective letter to send to the Western States Board of, like the Organisers Board, to say, look, we're literally not going to be able to make it. Because we're not allowed to leave the country. We really don't want to forego our tickets. But if you let us roll it over now, then you've got plenty of time to let someone else local know that they can have our tickets, and then we'll just come in 2022. And
really
that took
smart.
a bit of backwards and forwards. It was a bit touch and go there, but eventually they did. And apparently the 2021 event had only one international participant because pretty much everyone wasn't allowed to travel. So yeah, leading up to that, so I kept sort of training, and so I decided to do 100 kilometers back home that year instead. And then, and again, I was really well trained, really good. But then leading into that event, I started to have some Achilles issues, and so I went into that 100 kilometers thinking I probably wouldn't finish. I did finish, and it wasn't a problem, but certainly after that, the Achilles issues sort of continued. So then from sort of May through to sort of November, December, I didn't do any running at all. It was like on different advice of different professionals, which was really annoying. So I sort of, gained, I didn't do any of the COVID kilos prior, but in that period, that certainly happened. I lost a lot of fitness, gained a bit of COVID kilos, and that was really, really annoying. We had that lockdown around then as well.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that really threw things, because I normally usually I'll have leading into Western States in sort of, what is it, April? No, not April. June. Yeah, I was going the wrong way. Leading up to it, I'd like to have a good, 6 to 8 months of training. So have a really good base built around that October, November, and then start training seriously in December. I did until December. So I was doing, in December, I was only doing about 10 to 20 Ks a week, and then slowly building through sort of January, February. And I was really touch and go on it. I didn't buy flights, or I had flights booked back in January in 2020, and then had flight credits in the lead up, because I thought I really wouldn't. I thought, if I'm going to go and know that I'm not going to finish, then what's the point in spending all that money to go? I'd rather just not. So I just sort of let it go, and kept training as best as I could, because of the Achilles issues, I had to keep it fairly flat. I couldn't do a lot of verts. I couldn't really go up the mountain much. And then we had all the rains in the first part of this year as well, which meant I couldn't really do much trail work either. So it was really, really difficult training block. And it wasn't until about 2 months out that I did a big training run, got 70 Ks out, all pretty flat still, but I got it done, did 8 hours, about 70 Ks, and went, okay, I'm feeling all right, I can do this. So then it went into mad crazy mode of booking flights and accommodation and working it all out. And at that stage, the prices were going up and everyone's starting to move. So it was like, oh, yeah, this is crazy. But yeah, got it all booked, and away we went. So certainly 2020, 2021, the goal would have been that sub 24 hours. 2022, it was, let's just go and be really smart about how we work, and just make sure we finish and get it done. So that's what I did.
Yeah, that's solid. It's a long lead up to a, yeah. And so I guess normally, like in the best case, I know, do you just train yourself? Do you have a trainer? Like, how do you kind of decide what you're going to do?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much self-taught in that regard. I pretty much just self-taught. I've done a lot of research over the years, and I sort of put my own programs together, which are kind of Frankenstein from other programs that I've seen along the way. Information I've gleaned online and through talking to people and past training stuff. But yeah, all pretty self-taught. And again, this is where, like, usually I'm quite rigid with how I train. I do myself up a program at the start of the season and then stick to it pretty religiously. This season, this training block was a little bit more flexible, based on the injury, so I had to be really wary about where I was feeling with that. Like, I didn't want to exacerbate that. Really. But also with obviously the weather conditions and everything.
We're losing your touch there, Josh.
Oh.
Oh, that sounds. Yeah, I think your video's frozen, so you could maybe even turn that off and just go audio. That might make it a little bit clearer.
It's not moving.
No, that's sounding a bit clearer. We're just breaking up a touch.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, normally I'd be up and down the mountain, up and down the escarpment, and doing very specific training. This block I kind of had to listen to the body a bit, had to listen to what the weather was doing, and stay away from sort of dangerous situations. And also used it as a bit of an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with some of the other runners from the Seeker Coasters and some of my community. So that was kind of cool too. But it certainly meant that I wasn't in that peak fitness of where I would have liked to have been. But that's fine. It's another.
Yeah, it's one of the realities of training for something, you always feel like there's more to be done. Speaking of, we've got Elle, who's part of our crew, and she's training for her first 100 miler. And she's got a question, which I'm sure will be for. It's all that, after all.
Amazing, shoot.
Fire away up.
Hey. So I do have a question. I am the newsletter girl with 4 Wild Places. So, and am currently training for the Kosciuszko 100 miler in December, which I'm pretty equally excited, but also nervous for. Just curious. First of all, I can really appreciate the rigidity of training. I think I am a little bit too rigid, particularly now that I currently have a relatively similar injury, I think. Just curious, how do you navigate the frustration and ambiguity of injury and like that indefinite timeline surrounding it when you have a definite timeline of a race?
Yes, that was really difficult. Like, injuries in general are really frustrating and problematic for a whole bunch of reasons, but certainly the mental health game is massive there when you're trying to. Like, this is something that like, particularly, like, as you would know, if you're training for 100 milers, 100 kilometers, and even shorter distances, you put a lot of your life into that, and you structure your life around what that training looks like. So when all of a sudden that gets kind of thrown out the window and you can't run, or they're recommending that you don't run, or whatever, that's a real challenge. And certainly, well, like I said, like, leading into this, this was kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity sort of thing. Like, it's really, it's not often that you're going to get called up to go to Western States. So it was, I sort of started to get to that point where I'm I didn't want to give it up, but it was definitely starting to be a bit of a thing in the back of the mind. If I was like I said before, if I was going to go and know that I'm not going to finish, then there's no point. Like that's crazy. Why step to the finish line when you know that, or step to the start line when you know that you're not going to make it to the finish line? So yeah, certainly with that injury, it's being realistic around what you're actually capable of, what's realistic, and listening to the body, and slowly building what you can do. And I set myself some very key goals, like knowing that I was well behind where I wanted to be, and at some points well behind where I needed to be. I set myself a couple of goals of, okay, I need to be getting to a certain volume of training within this, and counting back, I'm a big fan of using calendars stuck up on the walls. They might be hand drawn or just put through a Microsoft document or something, and put those on the wall and tick, like I'll tick them off at each day, Monday to Friday, cross that off. Okay, I did that one. Okay, something's happened on this day, so I've had to move it, and logging those kilometers. Okay, this week I did this many kilometers. And so I set myself a thing of, like, particularly starting from December, where I would have already been wanting to do some really good volume. And I was starting out at 10 to 20 Ks a week, whereas by that stage, I would have been wanting to do more like 50 to 80 Ks a week. I had to set myself realistic goals of, okay, because I can't go from 20, or it's not a good idea to go from 20 Ks a week to 50 Ks a week to, or 20 Ks one week and jump up to 50 Ks, then jump up to 80 Ks, like week on week. That's, you're gonna do yourself a mischief. So being realistic with what that volume can look like, and knowing sort of my training history, what I'm normally able to do, and then factoring that injury in to where where you can sort of be a little bit flexible. But previously, I was doing up to, like, building to 2020, 2021, I was doing up to sort of 160 Ks and even a little bit more weekly. And this time around, that wasn't viable. I set myself a goal of, I want to get up to at least 100 Ks. And not weekly. I sort of would build that up because mostly I'll sort of work on a 3-week progression where I'll sort of build it up to that sort of 160 Ks or 100 Ks, depending what I'm doing, and then drop it off, and then build it back up and drop it off. So with this, I just wanted to make sure I could build it up and do at least a couple of 100K weeks in the lead up, and also some really good back-to-back runs. So another sort of strategy I used, knowing that I was really not that fit, I sort of reached out to the community and sort of saw what they were doing and just tacked myself onto some of their runs. And so a mate of mine, he was training for 100 Ks. He's also training for COSI, the miler. He was going out for 60 Ks, I think. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll come and can I tag along and just drag along behind you? And that was nice because I knew he was more fit than me and quicker, so I sort of dragged behind him and was like, I'm not going to do the full 60 with you, but I'll come out and do 40 because that's what I sort of scheduled myself, and then I'll do another run the next day. So yeah, I don't know that I've really answered that, but being really realistic, easing off when I need to, and setting some very specific goals, like milestones, I guess, of I need to be at this stage, I need to be at this stage. And that big one for me was I was like, if I can get out 8 hours by this date, which I think was 2 months prior to the race, if I can get out an 8-hour run, don't worry about what the distance is, but if I can stay on my legs for 8 hours and not do myself a mischief 2 months out from the event, then I think I'm going to be solid. And so I did that, and felt fine. And that's when I went, all right, I'm going to States. And then to keep myself honest, I think maybe 3 weeks after that, I went out and did a really solid back-to-back and put some good vertical in. So then I went out and I did a flat 50, followed by the next day I did a really vertical sort of 43 Ks or so. Or it was more on hours, actually. I sort of went out for, 6 hours on each day, or 5 hours on each day. So, yeah, set those goals, stick to them.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
No worries. And good luck on it. Like, I wish I was going. It's going to be good, particularly because it's the inaugural 100 miler down there. That's going to be really, the inaugural event, really, the whole event.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
Looking forward to it.
And I guess, on that, trail culture in the States is, far ahead of where it is in Australia. But like from your experience from, Sea Cleave Coasters is a pretty great group of people that, really champion that area. But going from there to, the home of trail running and ultra running, like what was your just general kind of trail experience? Like what were your key takeaways and what blew your mind?
Oh, everything. It's amazing over here. We don't like the Western States Trail starts and I can't even do the calculations or anything, but I remember it starts at 7,000 feet high, and then it goes up, and like I think that's about as high as Kosciuszko, like we don't have anything.
We don't have mountains, do we? Like we think we do, but we don't.
No. It's like we can say that we do, but you come here and you see them, like it's summer and the mountains are still snow-capped, I just left Seattle this morning and they've got Mount Rainier in the background, and it's white, like the whole thing's white, and
middle of summer, it's amazing.
It's wild. And the whole, like, I came in to the States about not quite 2 weeks before the event because I was really concerned about jet lag and also trying to get that altitude acclimatization.
Yeah, and probably not.
So I spent a bit of time. Well. Exactly. So there was an event the weekend before Western States that I was able to go and have a bit of a look at. Broken Arrow, yeah.
That looked like
and so
great atmosphere, and like it's like, I guess I've always, grown up watching sports, and a bit like similar path to you in terms of like just discovering trail running was a thing and then ultra running. And now it kind of seems like that those are the events we love are now getting the, the experience of like, high profile sports in terms of like atmosphere and crowds and streaming and following and like just that real interaction, like whether you're there in person or following online.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, turning up to that Broken Arrow. And it's so funny too, because we've got, there's a lot of, like, trail running's really becoming this big thing where you're sort of getting these trail sort of celebrities and everything, or, internet famous sort of people. And you turn up to these events here and they're all there, like you sort of, like I turned up to Broken Arrow, and I was one of the Australian guys is rep for Spring Energy in Australia.
Oh yeah.
And so he's sort of part of that crew. So I was hanging out with him and turned up to the Spring Energy thing, and then we all went for a hike. And there's Sage Kennedy sort of hanging out, just having a chat with him, and we hike up this mountain to see all the Broken Arrow runners go, and then we sort of hiked further up to see more of them, and there's just people everywhere. Like our UTA in the Blue Mountains has built over the past 12, 15 years, whatever it is, to be this massive thing. We're now, like, it's really amazing. You could be just anywhere talking to some random person and, oh yeah, I'm going to go and do that. Oh, I didn't even know you were into trail running. Like, it's this really big thing. But that's it. That's the only event really. Like, there's everything else is kind of much smaller. There's this really sort of tight community around it, and it's really great and all, but essentially there's not a lot of spectators, there's not a lot of entries, there's not a lot of anything sort of going around in Australia, whereas here it seems like every trail event is massive. So turning up to Broken Arrow, it was a whole weekend of like Friday, Saturday, Sunday races every day, all sorts of distances, all different courses, and just people everywhere, and the sponsorship and everything that's behind it. I was staying at a campsite, and there was a bunch of young blokes who were there, who had come from, I don't know, further down south to do the event, to do a couple of different events there, and they sort of come back to the campsite after doing a couple of their events, and they just had these Salomon bags with Broken Arrow logo on it that was just given to them as part of the kit bag, and then it's stuffed full of like gels and hats and merchandise and like everything. And you turn up to the event, and there's all these different stands everywhere for Strava and Salomon and Spring and good as sunglasses, all the different brands, and you sort of go around and have a chat to them, and people just giving you stuff. I ended up with a pair of these gaiters and a couple of different pairs of socks and a hat. Well, actually, I ended up with a bunch of hats. But I'm like, how am I going to take all this stuff home? And a bunch of gels and all sorts of crazy stuff. So the culture behind it is massive, but America's just so much bigger in terms of, like one of the cities has the same population as Australia. So anywhere you go, there's massive population. So anything that you're into, it's going to be massive. If your thing is trail running, then there's a massive community there. If your thing is hot rod cars, then there's a massive community there. Like no matter where you go. So and it's got a longer history too. So, Western States has been going for a phenomenally long time. Yeah. The Hard Rock 100 was this past weekend as well. It's got a massive following as well. It's, got a lottery. Cascade Crest is on this weekend, which I was trying to get to go volunteer and check it out, but it's kind of not really working out with my
with yours sitting on a train, not going anywhere.
Exactly. I'm so bummed about it. I just say, man, I could have, there's so many times I've thought, I'm just going to get off this train and to hell with it. I'm just going to go Cascade Crest. To hell with it. But then, because everyone's traveling and everything, it's really hard to get tickets to go anywhere. From the start, I sort of planned on going from Auburn north, but then I couldn't get tickets, so I had to go south to come north. It was crazy. So the mountains are bigger. The amount of places to run are more and bigger and more diverse as well. And the amount of people and the amount of sponsorship and all that sort of stuff, it's just bigger. Like it's massive. And they've got, and one of the things that's really quite special about what happens over here is that real trail stewardship culture as well. It's amazing. my entry to Western States got a bit changed, but normally with Western States and most of the 100-mile events you enter, you have to do a certain amount of volunteer hours, either working on a trail or working for an event, which is
cool.
Amazing.
Unheard,
That's such a cool thing.
Yeah. And I guess that's what we're, it's so good to hear stories of different events, so that way we can take the best bits and, those really special bits. And, we are smaller in Australia, and we're kind of, I feel like we're growing in terms of like the number of trail events and like the uptake, and, having something like, UTMB have the COSI event, like, people are investing it in Australia, but how can we make sure that we get those best bits of the sport to create a scene that, not only allows people to, explore these places, but also celebrate them and protect them, because, I'm sure it's the same in the state, it's the same everywhere. Unfortunately, a lot of these places are, suffered fires, floods, all their droughts, all these things. Yeah, development, and whether it's trails in summer or snow in winter, like it's a huge economy, and that's something that we can see in the States, and that you can say it is worth something, and that's why we need to protect it, not only for the nature's sake, but also something like Broken Arrow and Western States, like it's huge, huge in terms of tourism and
that's it.
All that kind of stuff. It's incredible.
It's massive. Like that, even like on that weekend, because that whole area, Lake Tahoe, Squaw, Olympic Valley, they had the Broken Arrow event, which was, I don't know, there's like 5 or 6 different races. There might be more over the course of the weekend. On the same weekend, they had the Tahoe 200 just down the road at Lake Tahoe. And that's amazing. Like that's a 200-miler event. In Australia, you'd be lucky to get sort of 10 people enter a 200-mile event. That thing had, I don't know, like 50, 100 people. Like I saw the start line and it was packed. Like there was like a massive amount of people doing this 200-mile event. And it's crazy. And then and up the road to Broken Arrow going, and then the weekend after you've got Western States going. So it's wild, and the amount of people, that was one of the really amazing things about Western States, is that it really does embody that that thing that trail runners have, that real passion and that real camaraderie of being together. It just you like all the aid stations are really well run. They're really well stocked, and they've got like so many volunteers there that when you come into an aid station, one of those volunteers allocates themselves pretty much just to you.
Yeah, wow.
And they go, okay, what do you need? Yeah, it was amazing. Like I'd run into an aid station,
butler, basically, like ready to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you don't need a crew because you've got someone to like fill your flasks and point you to where the toilet is and all that stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then you sort of get to know these people, and then they come and meet you at the finish line as well.
That's incredible.
There was two people. Yeah, like I met a bunch of them before in the days leading up, so I sort of knew a few different people by name, some aid station captains, and when you roll into the aid station, they some of them already knew me by name, and oh, did you get this? Check this out. I rolled it like after a particularly sort of tricky climb up at a Devil's Thumb. I rolled in and I was looking a bit, how you going? And this guy Ramon sort of grabbed me and said, how you doing? Do you want to sit down? I'm like, no, not sitting down. Like, what do you need?
No.
And yeah, he just sort of walked me through. It was like awesome. Bottles, give me some of that, walked me along. And then another one at another station checked out my heat. And then both of those met me at the end and went, we were waiting for you to come in. Like, well done. Like, just amazing sort of stuff. And most of them are volunteers, and most of them, and that was the other crazy thing, rolling through an aid station in the middle of like it was 5 a.m. in the morning or something. And Scott Jurek and Hal Kerner were there, serving chicken soup, and vegetable soup. Like it's insane.
Yeah,
These people were.
It's such a testament to it, isn't it? And that's what we really want to build in Australia, where it's like you don't have to be running like an ultra runner to have that amazing experience and feel part of something. Like you can do it as a volunteer and and even as crew, if you're crewing someone, but that real just absolute love for the sport and the people who do it, and just I think that love of the community and being part of something.
Oh, absolutely. The people who go and do the Western States stuff, and I think most of these big 100-milers over here, like even seeing some of the stories come out of Hard Rock and everything, they come every year. They're involved on some level every year, and they love it. There's just this real togetherness about it. It's like
pilgrimage, isn't it?
Family,
to the birthplace of trail running. Well, we've taken up an hour of your time, Josh, and hopefully either you got to get off
I'm
that
going
train. But it's quite funny because this is a very eventful trail chat, because you're on a train in Portland, I'm in a park in central Queensland, and Will's had to leave because he's off to the hospital to have a baby.
Oh wow, that's happening! Oh my goodness! Wow, that's so awesome.
There's turns out we're having a baby now. Lol. Sorry, but I need to go.
Congratulations, Will.
I know. So anyway, poor, give him about 20 hours, or you think running an ultra Western States is hard. Oh, I feel for his partner and what she's got coming for her. But very exciting that she went into labor during a trail chat. So that will
That's awesome. And it's volunteer. It's going to be on the internet for the ages.
Exactly. I remember this time. But no, there's lots. Thanks so much for taking the time, and it's really awesome to hear about your experience. And I think it's good to hear that it wasn't the lead up that you wanted, but you did it and you had an awesome time. And like you said, I agree with you. Anyone who wants to put their mind to running, whether it's a half marathon or a marathon, ultra, 100 miler, it's totally possible. You just got to give it time. And
it is. If your body works, I always think the amazing thing, even if your body doesn't work, there's that guy, I can't remember his name, Michael someone, I think, who did the 50K in the Blue Mountains on crutches. He's got one leg, so you can do it. If your body works, then it just do it. And it doesn't have to be. It's all relative too. It
doesn't have to be fast. You don't have to win. It's like you said in your race report, getting to the finish line is the hard part in many ways, and then from there it's all just a bonus. And and that type 2 fun where you question you why you put yourself in that position and why you paid for the privilege, but afterwards it's a pretty amazing accomplishment.
It is, and for anyone. And it's all about your own thing, someone going out and doing 100 miles in 15 hours is spectacular, but somebody going out and doing 100 miles and getting in 5 seconds under the cutoff is just as spectacular, if not more. Someone who's done nothing their whole life and going out and running a 5K park run, that's spectacular too. So it's all relative. It's just about setting those goals and going doing it. What do you want to do? Go and do it. Maybe not today, but build to it. So no, that's awesome. Well, congratulations, you're a Western States finisher. That's a very exciting, I should have brought my buckle down. I was
going to say a good buckle to put on the shelf. And enjoy
the shoes.
I thought, are they giving out Crocs at the finish line this year?
They got the Hoka slides.
Well, they know that's the only shoe you'll be wearing for a while you wait for your toenails to fall off. Oh, the,
Yeah,
all the
exactly.
joys. But
Plenty
well,
of
enjoy your travels, Josh, and I hope you get to wherever you're trying to go eventually. But yeah,
Well, we shall see.
thanks for taking the time, and yeah, I hope to catch you on the escarpment when you're back, whenever that will be.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Like I say, anyone who's keen to come and who hasn't been to Wollongong and is keen to come and see the trails, wait until they've dried up and hit me up and come down and we'll go and get some Ks in.
Sounds awesome. Excellent. Well, all the best. Safe travels, Josh, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.